Let's talk about America's response to the disastrous wildfires in Maui, in the American island state of Hawaii. In the past, the United States Navy, which has a large presence in Hawaii, the United States Navy has positioned nuclear powered aircraft carriers, a carrier, specifically the USS Enterprise, at one time was stationed off the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean when it had suffered a devastating typhoon and they had no potable water. And they put our aircraft carrier there to make water for the island, which, by the way, they didn't use. They didn't like the taste of it because it had chlorine in it. And it's my understanding that they used that fresh water to wash the streets with. Regardless, um, Maui was devastated by a wildfire, and a lot of stuff can happen to the Hawaiian Islands. Typhoons can hit them, wildfires, which happen, by the way, wildfires happen all the time on these islands because the one side of the island is very dry and the other side is wet. Windward side, leeward side. But this happens all the time. So I got to thinking about that instance where the USS Enterprise was used to cook water, and I got to thinking, America does retire older aircraft carriers past their service life, and some of those are coming up eligible for retirement in the not too far future. They're nuclear powered. All of them are now nuclear powered. Um, which is, you're talking about a platform with basically inexhaustible fuel supply and capability. One of the big things they do is they produce fresh water for their steam catapults. Now, they, they can't be nuclear powered forever. Usually, when the decision is made to retire one of these platforms, it is a financial idea where it would cost more to refuel the ship, its nuclear reactor cores, to refuel them, and how much service life are you going to get out of that 20 years of refueling? The 20 years is around what you can get out of it from refueling. It depends on the tempo of operations. If it's going to war and you're using the catapults and stuff a whole lot, it's going to be a little bit less. But compared to what it would be to just go ahead and scrap the vessel. Well, so here's my idea. Instead of just scrapping uh, the carrier, let's say the USS Nimitz, who is the oldest one, coming up for, it'd be the first one coming up for retirement, just by age, is decommission the ship. I would say decommission its propulsion, its engine rooms, let's say. And the engine room, the ship doesn't run directly off of the reactors. The propellers aren't coupled to the reactor. The reactors make steam, and then the steam runs reduction gears that run the propellers, and that's how the ship's propulsion comes from. Well, my idea is you basically get rid of the engine rooms, and the propulsion for the ship would be provided by fleet tugboats of some kind. You just strap onto it and pull it wherever you need it to be. Okay, and that's how you navigate the thing. So you don't need this big engineering department. You would need the reactor department to keep the reactors going and produce steam and electricity or cooking water. It's not so much that you need steam, you need to run the desalination plants and make fresh water. That fresh water is then made into steam. You don't really have to do that part. You're making the fresh water to use somewhere else. So this is what you would have. Compared to the price of decommissioning one of these, I think the way it goes in America is these decommissioned Navy ships are sold for $1 or a penny. And commercial companies take them, tear them apart, and then they make money off of the metal and basically the metal, and they recycle the metal to a great extent. It goes right back to the Navy, and they make ships back out of them again, just different ships. But it's a $1 billion platform, and these places that decommission them, they don't take the reactors out of them. The Navy takes the reactors out of them and disposes of them, and uh, the reclaiming places, they're getting all of that stuff minus the nuclear reactor cores. I'm saying keep it in one piece. Decommission the engineering part of it, the propulsion part of it, tow it around, and permanently position that aircraft carrier out in the Hawaiian Islands, because we know what has happened in the Hawaiian Islands. It's happened before, and it's going to happen again. So you have a helicopter platform, giant fuel tanks to fuel the entire air wing on the aircraft carrier, which is no longer there. But you could use that to store fuel for the islands, and you could run it as a helicopter airport, which you could charge for. You could charge a landing fee for it, as though it is a municipal airport. It has hospital facilities on board. It has uh, big commercial kitchen facilities on board, because they used to feed a crew of 6,000, which you're not going to have on there. But you'd have the berthing space for all those thousands of people, and you could make a heck of a lot more berthing space, because a lot of the ship was not dedicated to berthing and stuff, because you needed it to perform operational functions for the air wing stationed on board, and the ordnance, and all of those operations, which are no longer there. But you could use them for a displaced civilian population. You could either fly them over on helicopter or carry them over on a boat. It's a big ship, so it would have to anchor out. You're not going to pull that thing up to a dock and do it. But the Navy does this all the time. We anchor these aircraft carriers off of ports at sea, and we have a little ferry boats and stuff, ferry people back and forth. That's better than leaving them, on a burned out island with no facilities at all, nothing but a bunch of burned out uh, ashes all over the place. I believe it would take a minimal crew to keep the ship in maritime navigable condition, make sure it's not sinking, make sure fires don't start on board, stuff like that. And you could literally tow it to wherever you needed its services at. You could charge for it. I mean, it could become the property of FEMA instead of the Department of Defense, Department of the Navy. It could be a resource for FEMA. It could be a state of Hawaii asset or resource. They need to maintain it, but there's all kinds of other stuff you could do with it when it was not actually doing a support function. It could be a maritime academy. You could teach merchant marine sailors ship handling, dropping the anchor, bringing the anchor back up, doing shipboard maintenance, stuff like that, which you could charge. The students are paying to go there and do it. It's just an idea, other than it seems like a heck of a resource to let go, because it's nuclear. It's not like you're having to fuel this thing up with very high fuel costs, and the fuel that is used out in the Hawaiian Islands is brought in by ship. The Hawaiian Islands are the most remote island chain in the world. Everything there is brought in by ship. And you could use this aircraft carrier, which does not require fueling, uh, meaning diesel fuel and the stuff that you would need to make power or fly these aircraft. But you could still, as I said before, you could still use the fueling facilities on board that aircraft carrier to support other operations, like a helicopter landing pad. You could utilize its resources to fuel aircraft at a Hawaiian airport or something. That their facilities got wiped out, haul that aircraft carrier over there. It may take a day or two to tow it there, anchor it there. Electricity. You'd have to come up with a cable system to go from the ship to shore and be able to connect to shore power, but you could actually power up a great deal of a small city. Like say, there's a aircraft, everything on Navy ships is all run by electricity. They make a lot of power. And you could power stuff up. You could at least power your emergency management systems, shore-based hospitals, command centers, stuff like that, because you got that great big ship sitting out there making virtually unlimited power and unlimited water without having to lose as much of the money in the investment that we had in those ships, plus the probably multi-million to billion-dollars it costs to take the reactor cores out. Now, of course, this would, if you only have a year or so remaining on usable life on the reactor core, that's something to look into. But if you have years and years on that reactor core, and I think something that we should look into. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching.